All right. Welcome. We're back. Episode 2, Flash Radio. That's what I'm talking about.
There you
Let's
go.
get it going. This is Rob Tronic and
this is Pat SL.
DJ Pat SL. This is the shorter version, so that way those that can't spell that full-length Schoolastra. Just go, oh, my bad. Schoolastra.
Nobody gets it right.
Hold on, say that again.
That's why it's SL.
Bring it to me. Say it again. How do you say that?
Shalastra.
Shalastra.
Yes.
I will remember this. I will ingest it.
It's okay.
I'm very sorry. Okay.
Really doesn't matter. Nobody ever gets it right. That's why it's SL.
Yeah, you're right. And as a partnership, we're the sole Sonic DJs now, so I better get your name right.
Let's hope so.
Or you're going to fire me and I can't be fired.
But we've got that robotic thing that can say it before we even say anything.
Right.
We're kind of idiot-proof.
Okay. All right. Hey, so this is Flash Radio FM. I don't know which camera I'm looking at, but thanks for joining us. We're going to get into the mix right now. We don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it's you, maybe it's me. I don't know.
We'll find out.
You'll
find out.
That's right. But please enjoy it. Leave us some comments, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, right back with some fun stuff to talk about.
That's right. We got some good discussion topics for today. All right. Thanks for tuning in on flashradio.fm.
You are now in the mix with the Soul Sonic DJs on flashradio.fm.
All right, we're back in from that was a hot mix. That was just hot. Like I'm sweaty right now.
Sizzling.
Sizzle. You guys have no idea how hot it is in here in the flashradio.fm studios. For the record, I showered and put some cologne on, so even if it's hot, it still smells good.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thank goodness. All right. So, again, I'm Rob Tronic. This is
Pat SL.
Schoolastra.
Still got it wrong.
I'm sorry,
There's
man.
no K.
I'm sorry. I don't know. It's good. You know what? Because I'm Rob Tronic, and I have to say the K all the time.
Yeah, no, it's good.
It's ingrained
they
in
always
there.
say in like advertising, it's very, very good to have a K. The K is very important in any kind of media outlet. Let's say advertising. That's why Coca-Cola is so powerful.
McDonald's.
Right.
Yes.
And Pat Kashalaskara,
Right.
Kapat.
Yeah. You know, I used to do this thing when I would come up with club names, and I had this 3 consonant rule. It was k, p, t. And if the club name didn't have the k, p, t in it, then I was like, it's less effective. I don't want to use it. So, for instance,
interesting.
Compression. Rob Tronic. Boombox. See? So
you're using the same type of thinking.
Yes.
As Madison Avenue.
Oh, very.
Right.
I'm a madman.
There you go.
I'm a madman.
You're mad something.
Yes, just mad. Okay. All right. So great. Hey, welcome back again. We're here. Let me get this mic a little bit better. You can hear the room, whatever that ambiance. So today, we want to talk a little bit about something we came across on Facebook. I was reading about Audiojack. And, they kind of made a plea to the sort of state of the scene, in quotes, about the fact that we should call it the business state of the scene, where as a duo, it's very hard for them now to consider touring and playing as a duo, just due to the fact of the economics and the fact that they're competing against people that are just stellar at the we'll call it social media game. Yeah. And now they're sort of struggling as to whether they're gonna, be able to tour together.
Well, I think it's a very interesting. We're at a very interesting moment because we are almost 20 years in with smartphones. I remember getting one in 2007. Winning it with like a contest or something, and it was right when they came out. And I got it, and I was like, wow, this thing's incredible. I had a BlackBerry before, which everybody knew had a BlackBerry before, and you were so used to typing with, feeling everything. And it seems so funny and antiquated to even bring this up now, but I used to get stopped at like Starbucks, and people would be like, oh my God, how do you don't feel each button that you're typing with? I couldn't do that. And of course, everybody now has a smartphone, and things have changed so much with that. And the advent of having, cameras and video shot all the time, then that kind of morphed into the changing tides of what social media was. Because even in 2007, I think I had just started a Facebook account, but we were still very deep in the MySpace world at the time.
That was it. Yeah, 2007. Yeah.
And, I don't even know. I honestly don't even know when Instagram came around. I've only had an Instagram account for like 3 or 4 years. I didn't get on it in the beginning. And then there's so many other things, whatever Twitter is called now with X and, Snapchat and
TikTok.
Tumblr and TikTok and, all these things that have come and gone and ones that have gotten really big for a little bit and went away. Like I said, Tumblr, I mean, does anybody use Tumblr anymore or Pinterest or anything? I don't even know. But anyway, so getting back to the social media thing and especially the world of TikTok and Reels on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have this new space where, and I saw Bob Sinclair do this and talk about this last year. He puts up a video that is comedic, corny, and it's tongue in cheek, and it's not meant to be a serious comedic bit.
Mm-hmm.
But he does something comedy with his kids.
Yeah.
And his kids are both very good looking and in their 20s.
Mm.
And his daughter is beautiful. And so he'll put out something that is with his daughter and with his son, and they'll be doing something goofing off, and that can get 500,000 views. Then he'll put out some music, and the music can be great, can be not so great. That's arguable, whatever your cup of tea may be. And that will get 25,000.
Right.
And he has said, what kind of world do we live in now where me, a music artist, I get more for doing sort of a gimmicky post rather than music.
Mm-hmm.
And whether we want to think about it this way or not, especially if you're somebody in the public eye, you are making money based off of views.
Mm-hmm.
So even if your intent is to put something out there and it is supposed to be a through line to selling your art, perhaps in the DJ world, getting more bookings or getting the kind of coverage that you're looking for so you can maybe get put into festivals,
Mm-hmm.
whether those festivals are in the same country you're in or abroad or whatever it may be. The idea is that the social media platforms were there to share information and share ideas. And what it's done is it's taken all of these really fantastic artists, a lot of them, fantastic artists, and it's relegated them to this low standing position where they have the chops, the skills, the background, the awards, the accolades, everything else. There is no doubt they are a name.
Mm-hmm.
They are a brand. And I don't care if they don't have 5 million followers on any given platform. I know as a promoter, if I book them, they're going to fill the venue because of their name.
Yeah.
Now we have people who don't necessarily, now they can. I do want to say as a caveat here, they can, but let's just say on the outside, they don't have the time in, they don't have the chops, they haven't played a lot out, so they don't know how to overcome a system where one of the monitors is blown or something's wrong with the mixer.
They
or
just
all
lack
that
the
stuff.
practical skill set that you pick up by being a hardened DJ.
The real world experience.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but because they've got these massive, massive followings, they're the ones getting booked. And the backlash to that is the audiences are getting what they paid for because they know who they're going to see. I mean, they're very savvy, especially we're talking about the under 30, under 35 crowd now. But the problem is, what are they getting musically? They're not getting the best of the best, which is really sad. And then on top of that, they're not getting the originators, the innovators, the true artists of the scene, both locally, nationally, internationally. They're getting the TikTok DJs.
And honestly, speaking about those type of artists that, innovators or maybe, they're not big social media presence, it's because they're shy or introverted. A lot of artists are just not into getting, put their life out online because they're just focused in on their art. And, so I think as we talk about, the Audiojack premise, which is I think coming from where I've come from is this sort of underground techno thing. So I got a little bit of that snob gene in me a little bit, unfortunately.
Sure.
But I look at them as like commercial, right? Like Audiojack was playing like, the kind of banging house, tech house, whatever it evolved into. So I never really gave it much thought. But the truth, as far as where they were at, but the truth is that they're sort of arguing on the plane of a commercial aspect, right? Like that's where I'm coming from on that. If it was if they were somebody else that was in the more like we call it underground scene, that was already didn't give a crap about social media per se, but was just working in this thread of the underground and working in warehouses and stuff and not giving a crap and just playing their music and doing their thing. But Audiojack exists on this commercial plane. And I kind of feel like number one, they have a point in the sense that economically it doesn't make sense because there's two of them. They have to share revenue, share the cost,
Right.
all that stuff. So that's totally valid. On the other hand, to lament about the fact that they're not able to have a successful social media presence, knowing that they've already been working in the commercial aspect of the dance music business and culture as it is, just means to me, and I hate to say it, no offense to the Audiojack guys, but play it well or lose, because you have two things you got to consider there. You are an artist, but you're also an entertainer.
Yes.
And you have to figure out where in those, that we'll call it the Venn diagram, where the intersection occurs. And anybody that wants their work or their art to be heard has to be an entertainer at some point to get people interested. And by entertainer, I mean that broadly speaking, like reaching out to the public, saying, here's my stuff, here's what I'm doing. And yeah, and to your point, your earlier example, where you might have somebody saying, I'm putting pictures of my kids up and I get 500,000, I personally, I would never do that with my kids. I feel like that's kind of weird. Put that on your personal account, but not on your, your artist DJ account. That's just me.
Well, in all fairness, they're DJs now too.
Oh, because they've been around for long enough.
Play and they're in their 20s. It's not like they're little kids.
Oh, I thought they were little kids.
No, it's not that at all.
Oh, got it. Okay, my bad.
But I get your point.
Apologies.
Yeah.
But my thought there is that it is a necessary component today to be adept at social media, and you have to decide how much you're going to put in, and what you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yeah.
And if Audiojack knows that there's two of them, and two of them is important to the way that they work, then put in twice the amount of effort to compete against those that are singularly putting themselves out, and maybe just social media stats. Because my feeling is, if you do that work, but your art is also substantive and meaningful and also interesting enough to keep people, then you're going to win on two fronts, not just one.
Right.
And somebody needs to sit down to Audiojack and go, well, if I was their manager, this is what I would say. I would say, don't give up. Let's figure out a better way to get you better social media presence, get those numbers up. We'll do it in a way that the intersection of art and commerce doesn't offend your sense as an artist, but let's figure out a way. Because to me, you're in it or you're not. Yeah. And Audiojack they said they're in it, but you're going to stop touring. That's like, okay, well, what are you doing?
Here's something I find really perhaps ironic about the whole thing. They have boosted their social media presence by doing this
yes.
exponentially.
Wow, that's a great point, actually.
People always love an underdog.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely that aspect to it.
Yeah.
And just to be clear for those out there that don't really quite get what Rob was talking before when he said commercial versus underground.
Yeah.
I know that this is a little bit confusing for people who don't really understand the talent buying and nightclub promotion, production side of things. There is the underground artist, and the underground artist is truly someone that will not play festivals necessarily, perhaps in at least not in their own area. It's kind of difficult, but the lines have been blurred a little bit. But let's say we take an underground artist who's incredibly well known. So let's take like Kenny Dixon Jr., the Moody Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the Moody Man will play in places around the world where he will play festivals.
Mm-hmm.
But in his hometown of Detroit, he does roller skating rinks.
Right.
And
small spots.
And he'll do tiny little warehouse parties for 400 people.
Yep.
He will put his fee relative to the venue and so that the venue can afford it, because he wants to be able to play at a venue, if whether or not he's directly involved with the production of the show itself or not, he gets it. And there's a lot of artists like, again, we're talking underground people like DJ Sneak or Doc Martin, or think of somebody in the techno world like Derek May. Derek could be in that same kind of blown up, huge level as someone like a Will Clark or whomever, but he doesn't do commercial techno remixes. He's not trying to get into that field.
Yeah.
He's one of the originators, as we talked about. He doesn't need to.
Yeah.
But that's where he wants to be. Then there is this level where the underground artists consider the music to be commercial. And most people who understand what commercial music is think, well, wait a minute. In dance music, commercial is Tiesto. Commercial is Steve Aoki, David Guetta. That is massively commercial. That is like that is like crossover pop music.
Yeah.
What we're talking about are the guys who, most of the club venues around the US are about 1,500 to 2,000 cap. So they're the kind of guys who could sell out those spaces. The underground artists are going to be more around the 600 to 800 range as far as what their draw could be. Maybe even some of them 400 to 600, depending on the market. But if you take most of the A markets, an A market is something like Vegas, San Francisco, LA, Miami, New York. A B market is when you start getting into cities like, let's say, San Diego or Austin or Denver. Not to say that they're B as a slight. It's just not, LA, almost, 20 plus million in the greater LA area.
Right.
All of the entertainment there. It's an A market because it's an A market. I don't think people really need that explained too much.
Yeah.
But, the point is that these guys can tour like an Audiojack. They can play a club in LA like an Academy, the Exchange, Avalon, and they can sell it out. And it'll be a stacked lineup, maybe a separate room with some other people supporting, bringing another 200-300 people in a separate room, everything to fill out the economics of a club and have it sell out. And what they are frustrated with, and I think rightfully so, is that here they are 20 years in, and they're wondering why they're not getting any festival plays.
Yeah, that's probably it.
And festival plays are real serious money.
Yeah.
Now, even some of the underground artists that we talked about before, Kenny Dixon, Jr., Sneak, Doc, Derek May, they certainly play festivals.
Yeah.
But those guys probably look a little bit more for the more intimate gatherings where they get to play for 3 hours and they get to play versus, the average festival nowadays is like a 45 minute to maybe a 90-minute set.
Yeah.
A lot of it's pre-programmed. Sometimes it's pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And they're setting it up to visuals and fireworks and everything else.
Exactly.
It's such a different world that, for me, I think a duo like Audiojack need to think about where they want to be. If that's truly where they want to go, then like you said, hire a social media team. When you mentioned the managers, now their whole thing was, we don't have management.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We don't have agents, which is fine, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, as somebody who's been booking through agencies and managers since the 90s, that is also one of their biggest things holding them back.
Yeah. Well, let me be clear. What I was saying, I'm not trying to become their manager. You know what I'm saying? That's not my thing. No. I'm not trying to be there. Oh, wait, this one. Yeah.
Now we're talking.
I can't. I'm no good at management. Yeah. Hey, so hold that thought. Let's get back into the mix.
Yeah.
We got more thoughts on this topic. We might actually make this whole episode about this. There's a lot of ways we can go here.
About here. Yeah.
So keep tuned in. If you've got any comments, please leave them in the comments below and give us some feedback.
Yes.
And we don't know who's in the mix right now, but it's either you or me, and it's going to be hot.
It's one of us. And by the way, we do want to hear your points of view on this.
Yeah.
So this isn't just Rob and I talking as DJs and promoters and that kind of thing. We want to hear what you think, especially the people, they're so forgotten nowadays.
Yeah.
The people on the dance floor.
Yeah.
I don't mean the schmucks out there with their cameras filming the DJs.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the people who don't care to look at them, the people who go in front of the speakers and get down.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think.
There you go. All right. So thanks for tuning in to flashradio.fm. Let's get back into the mix with one of us, the Soul Sonic DJs.
There you go. All right, everybody. And we're back. We are on flashradio.fm.
That's right.
This is Pat SL and Rob Tronic as the Soul Sonic DJs.
Yep.
And we're going to continue our discussion on the topic of Audiojack and sort of the greater implications of not only the posts that they put out, but really, what does it mean to be a DJ in 2025 versus 2005 versus 2003, which I think was about the time that they were discussing when they were talking about, you know, we weren't in this for the economics.
Yeah.
We weren't in this for
To become
the
famous.
idea to become famous. It
Right,
was just, we wanted to play good records for people who like to dance.
Yeah.
And I can certainly understand. And, you know, I feel that to my soul because for me, when I decided that I wanted to be a DJ, the thing for me that really made the difference and really was when I knew I wanted to try this thing out was a few years after I had gotten turntables. So I got turntables in 1992.
Cut out. 1992.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'll say that again.
Okay.
So I got turntables in 1992.
Yeah.
And I was in awe of beat matching. I tried to do it. Didn't really understand the structure. Didn't really understand that much about music theory at the time. So I didn't realize that, you know, most music is a 4/4 rhythm or a 3/3 rhythm, that you can basically find the lowest common denominator between the two. That's how you can mix different rhythms together and actually make music come together. For me, DJing was always about not just playing a song, because anybody can play a song, especially nowadays, your phone can play a song.
Right.
It was about not just the programming, which is where you put the music together when you play it and when, but it was about the mixing of the two songs. And there's two different styles that are very, very well known, especially within the house and techno community. You have the New York style, which is called the long blend, which are several bars, can be sometimes 12, 14 bars, and they're still mixing 2 or 3 records together.
Yeah.
And when I say records, I'm just talking about tracks, just for the layperson here.
Yeah.
And then there is what was known as the Chicago style, the cut and paste, made famous by Ron Hardy, one of the legends of DJing, one of the first guys to really ever use the separate EQ, so the bass, the mid, and the high, and actually tweak those while mixing 2 records together or 3 records together. All of the older mixers, the rotary mixers that have incredible sound, but at the time, the Bozaks, the Uris, and so on, they didn't have a separate EQ for each channel. And it was around the beginning of the 90s into the early 90s, especially when Ron Hardy was known for this sound, and he really sort of colored what became known as the Chicago New Jack scene.
And he was really aggressive with that mixing style too.
Really?
He was real, like just rah, 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 rah,
Yeah.
Yeah, he was real. That's actually what made it unique, as opposed to the blending style that you might find in New York. He was, and you know, I'm sure he
Chopping.
he was
that cutting and pasting
very
style.
aggressive
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
And it's not to take away anything from other scenes. And I mean, we go on for days about what Jeff Mills was doing even back in the early 80s with early techno and electro.
We call those
and
those are
breaks.
parallel things. Everything's kind of happening in parallel, so we're not trying to make it seem like it's isolated.
But the point is that for me, all of that DJing, which was really, really exciting and a really interesting thing to see, well, the DJs weren't on a stage in the 90s.
Right.
It was rare that you would go to a party. When I say a party, I mean a warehouse party. And they could have happened as a break-in. They could have.
Oh, we've got the flashradio.fm mascot coming in. Come here, girl. All right. Come here, girl. Come on. All right. Sorry. Hey, everybody, this is the Flash Radio FM mascot, Mini Driver. Okay, she apparently came in from her
Okay.
walk. All right. So I'm sorry to
It's okay,
interrupt your train of thought.
The train of thought just got blown out the window, but
That's
I think
what
we're
she
okay.
does. That's what she
Okay.
does. All right.
So
No, I'm leaving this in. This is staying in. So good job,
maybe
good
I'm
job,
just trying
girl.
to get it riled up. I'm getting it riled up.
Girl, come here.
2 hours later.
So Minnie Driver came in for a minute, and now she's gone. She got a snack. So sorry, Pat. You were saying, my friend.
I forgot what I was saying. So we were basically talking about DJing and what it meant to be a DJ before. And, you talk about the old thing with the old booths in like the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s where the booth might be completely separate from the dance floor, kind of behind maybe even a little window sometimes. It was always removed. And if you watch any of those older videos, you see that people are dancing with each other and they're mingling. And then around the beginning of the 2000s, and certainly the companies I was working for are responsible for this in many ways, we started putting the DJs front and center on stages. So as we were, moving a lot of the DJs onto the stages and stuff, and it was in larger venues, and it started to be especially in LA, a lot of the club spaces were actually old theaters.
Yeah, right.
And so a stage was basically how not only the room was set up acoustically, but it was also just, that was where everyone was going to be looking anyway. The whole room faced towards a stage. So naturally the evolution kind of moved towards that.
Yeah.
But we also had dancers. We had very crude visuals. And we had inflatables, is what we used to call them. Like, I don't know if you remember the big sunbursts, and like we even had like the God's Kitchen logo blowing the angel blowing the horn and all that stuff. We had these huge inflatable things that we would have throughout the venues, sometimes having lasers projected on them, sometimes having visuals projected on them. And the whole point then was that the whole room was something to look at. It wasn't just about staring at the front at a stage. Well, 2025, that's where we are now.
Yeah.
And I think that is what lends itself so much to the TikTok DJ, for lack of a better phrase. And so I really understood what they said in part of their posting, which was that, we got into this to play records for people not to be famous.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people today that they just want to be famous. The music is secondary.
Right.
And there are very, very big DJs where if you look at them over the last 20 years, man, their music style changes as much as they change their underwear. It's ridiculous. And then you have the guys who've been doing it the longest, the ones who have the most respect, that frankly play the best music and do it in a way that is just magical. And they may incorporate some newer sounds with older sounds and whatnot, but they do so in a way where everything is relevant together. And that same style is from the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now in the 2020s. It's the same with the music ever evolving and ever changing, coming in and out of that feel. And I truly understand where Audiojack was coming from, and that when they said this, which was, where are we at? We're at this sort of crossroads now.
Yeah.
And maybe like we were talking about before, maybe for them, the idea is to hire some of those teams that we were talking about, to push them on a social media level, to push them on a marketing level.
Yeah.
I can remember going back 20 plus years that when we would work with some of the DJs that were getting bigger and bigger at the time, and eventually got into this upper echelon of DJing where they're making, 6-figure deals, 7-figure deals. They have, let's say, residencies at, anything from festival residencies nationally to residencies in Ibiza, residencies in North America with a club brand, let's say like Insomniac, that may manage, 60 venues around the country. They get booked with Insomniac. Now they can play all those venues and all their festivals. That is a great place to be in from a financial standpoint. And as long as musically you're still relevant to your crowd, you can really do whatever you want to do with your music. But there is the opposite side to that coin, which is a very sharp edge from one to the other, which is you have to capitulate and play a certain sound in order to stay within that realm.
Right.
And that's a very interesting place to be. And I think that's what Audiojack, and maybe in the more broader picture of a lot of DJs, is where they're coming from, which is, you know, at what point am I playing music? At what point am I playing what's hot as far as the top 10? And then at what point am I selling out? And to me, what selling out means playing music that you really don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You're just playing it because you know it's going to get you paid.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything at all there. I think everything you just said is spot on. I feel like the it's always going to be the perennial question. Where do you decide to make your North Star? Are you about music only? Great. But expect the trade-off to that is going to be not maybe being able to get the sort of platform or the attention that you want. Do you want to be a full entertainer? Hey, go for it. I mean, Steve Aoki was throwing cakes at people. That has nothing, literally nothing to do with the music. I actually don't think it's that much of a problem. People liked it. He liked it. It was funny, you know, but that to me, that's the whole other end of the spectrum. Okay. Kudos to him. He got a lot of attention. We're talking about it now still, even though I don't think he does it anymore.
Well, I mean, he's still,
you know,
from what I understand, because he still plays a lot here in Vegas.
Yeah. He lives here too. He has a house here and everything.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. But I think his whole persona of doing the cake, the stage diving, riding around on the inflatable canoes and all that stuff.
Right.
You know, it's what people are going to see him for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if Danny Tenaglia started doing that tomorrow, we'd all be asking, did he go crazy?
What happened?
Yeah.
We need intervention there.
Right. And the same thing would
Disco
happen
intervention.
if Steve Aoki tomorrow started playing like Underground Tribal House, we'd all be like, where did this come from?
Yeah. Actually, you know, we had a moment in time where that happened where Dubfire switched almost overnight to like minimal techno. And that was back when he released Ribcage. I don't know if you know the name of the track, but we were all like, what is going on here? Now, he was able to build to a point where he was as big, maybe a parallel to the Richie Houghton, you know, kind of persona. People are like, I'm going to, and that no small feat, because he came from that house sound, big room house sound. I think I don't know what you would
say
call
more
it.
Progressive
Progressive house. Oh yeah,
house.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was. And you could actually hear some of his progressive influence in that, in Ribcage and then subsequent songs. Yeah. Good. I think it was really good music. It was just a shock to the system because it was such a blatant left turn into what was hot at the time. And there's risks involved with that because people can be like, that looks opportunistic.
Sure.
Why were you about that now and you weren't about it, you know, last month? Like what happened there? But I think it also gave him longevity that he would not have seen if he had stayed. It was Deep Dish, right? That's what he was one half
Deep
of.
Dish, yep. Absolutely. Him and Sharam.
Sharam, that's right. And who knows? Maybe they're ripe for a reunion tour of sorts or something.
They've been doing
that.
dates.
Oh, good. That's
last
good.
Few years. Yeah.
So there's risk involved there, but I think to do like what Dubfire did. On the other hand, the integrity of his music, and it was so good that it was without question. So, in the sense that this is legit. Like okay, at first we all kind of raised eyebrows, being the snobbish sorts we are. But then we realized, hey, that's good. Now, and I think that's an example of one way to navigate what maybe you personally need to evolve to, and then pick a thing that you actually really like, and then just go, damn the torpedoes, I'm going to go for it. Yeah. And I think, kudos to him for being able to pull that off.
Well, and but also he did that before the, maybe around, I want to say 2010, because Minimal was really hot about 2006, 2007,
and
2008.
earlier. Yeah, it depends. If you start in Europe, it was really like 2002. And if you go even
right.
to Detroit and you go Minimal Nation with Robert Hood, that was in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So there's a thread there. But yeah, to your point, it really sort of took hold about 2005 and 6 and 7.
Right. When Ricardo Villalobos just became a global phenomenon.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take that around that time and then fast forward about 8 years and you have someone like Deadmau5, who Deadmau5, when he started, he had several different names he went under.
Yeah.
I particularly liked Blue Screen of Death, BSOD.
Yeah.
He did some bottom heavy.
Yeah.
It was like a cross between electro house without going into commercially electro house and techno, and just driving bottom heavy, just really good chugging stuff. Then the Deadmau5 sound came out, which was more on the electro house tip, very bouncy, a lot of fun, and really gave him obviously huge acclaim, huge worldwide success, made him a superstar. And then he wanted to do that really grinding, like, I don't know, I'm just going to say it for lack of a better phrase, 4 a.m. on ketamine, hard techno. And he did that under Test Pilot. And I think probably Dubfire, had it been 5 or 8 or 10 years later, probably would have done a different acronym or a different
like an alias,
some kind of alias or something to release that music.
You're
but
right.
back then they just did it under their own name. And I do love a lot of that 90s and early 2000s stuff where a lot of the European guys and even the North American guys really did branch out, and you can get a release. I mean, look at some of Paul Johnson's stuff. It's like straightforward disco house.
Yeah.
All the way to like hard house, like hard house, like 140 BPM hard house.
Yeah.
And it all is just Paul Johnson.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a little bit, that's part of I think the evolution of a lot of dance music in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the evolution of a lot of the DJs.
And I think in the spirit of keeping things interesting, kudos to all of those guys for trying different things, alias or not. I mean, it's a good thing. Nobody ever wants to remain static, I don't think. It's not good for the culture. It's not good for the music. I think but when you think about that's one bucket. But when you think about the business side and what's the trade-off there, and then people's impression of that, I mean, as an artist, you just have to have the balls to do it and just do it. You're going to decide to do that, and be commercial, then be commercial, and don't be actually, you asked me how I feel about it. Now I understand where I am with this. Be unapologetic about what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
Fuck everybody's opinion.
Yeah.
And just do it, and don't be a slave to the expectations of others, because the day after you die, in about 3 weeks, people are going to be like, enough. The Facebook postings will go away, everything will go away, and and you just, I hate this to end dark on this. Nobody's going to remember. So don't worry about it. Do what you need to do today that works for you now. And if it's a business thing, great. If it's a creative thing, great.
Yeah.
More power to you. But that being said, it's also might be a topic of discussion for people like you and me, and we'll discuss it, and and ultimately ignore you and me, do your thing, power to you, and great. And we support you in that way, but we may end up talking about it.
Right.
Too.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's fascinating when people are willing to step out of their comfort zones.
Yeah.
I think is the main thing.
Yeah.
Especially when that comfort zone is very profitable. I mean, let's be honest. That is, it's their livelihood.
Yeah.
These guys aren't going to turn around and be like, well, I was playing, commercial EDM.
Yeah.
And then I decided to play techno, and now I'm an insurance salesman. These guys don't want that. So if they're
and to be clear, we don't want that for them either.
No.
Like, okay.
But if they're willing to take that step, I do think on some level, if the music doesn't resonate to you, obviously you don't want to follow it. But if you do, or even a little bit, sometimes it's an acquired taste. It may take you a little while to get used to it, to kind of go with it. And, it also brings me back to a very old adage, which is no person has ever on their deathbed said, I wish I had worked more.
Yeah, worked more.
I wish I hadn't taken so many risks.
Right.
Nobody ever says that. It's always the opposite.
Yeah.
And so, if there's one thing to take away from all of this, and I certainly hope Audiojack, after all of this has come out, we're just on the very tail end of this, even though it came out probably a week ago. It's been discussed everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you've got to do what you want for you, and you got to live.
Yeah.
And if you don't live, what are you doing? Like, live life to the fullest. Go out and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Make the music you want to make. Don't try to make the music for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because everybody can hear it.
Yeah.
Make the music you want to make for you. It'll either resonate now or eventually it will, but it will at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, there are artists today that they're dead, they're gone, but their music now is more viable. It is played more. It is more celebrated now than even when they were alive.
Right.
Same thing goes for art of any kind.
Yeah.
Literature, film, painting, sculpture, you name it. It's a strange thing we have in this world.
Well,
Yeah.
but a part of that is because nothing will ever come from those artists again. And so people revere what they left behind, and it becomes a scarcity in that way, right?
Yeah.
Because that's it. And then by scarcity it becomes more valuable and people pay more attention to it and all of that. And that's all good stuff. All right. Well, I think, what else? We got any closing thoughts on that, or?
Just to talk about all the people maybe that, I mean, why not? I'll probably forget some people, but there's been so many people who have passed away in the last 30 days.
Oh boy. Yeah.
That, I mean, just huge names.
That's correct.
In music. I mean, from Roy Ayers to, God, I can't get it out of my mind. There's
Fabian from LA, LA Underground. He just RIP.
That really just came out of nowhere and slapped me across the face. I used to do an after hours with Fabian and Andrew D. Fabian and Andrew D. used to do the Love and Happiness after hours in the 90s. And we did a pretty short-lived one in LA in like 03 and 04.
Mm-hmm.
We just couldn't get it off the ground, but we did it. Music was great. Fabian's such a nice guy. So is Andrew, but just to hear Fabian is gone is just, it's mind-blowing, you know?
Yeah.
And, as another guy our age that just out of nowhere, and then also DJ Funk about a week ago.
Right.
And God, I'm trying to think. Then Angie Stone, which was, again, I think it was a car accident coming home from a concert late at night where like a semi truck crossed a center lane, came across, and she was in a Sprinter van.
She's the house vocalist, right?
Yeah, she's mostly known for I Wish I Didn't Miss You Anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a really, really big song for her, but yeah. And there's been a few more, and I don't want to say the wrong person because there's nothing worse than that.
Right.
But
you know what I'm going to say to this is that house music culture has been in effect for we'll say 40 years, but concentrated in the last 30 for sure. And one of the things that I always wanted to do as a motivation behind doing events was to meet my heroes,
right,
and get to just say, hey, I got to shake their hand. That was a Derek May, Kevin Saunderson, all those guys. That's why I booked them. I was like, I want to see these guys. I want to be like, they're history to me. They're without their
big
contributions, time. I would not even have dedicated as much blood, sweat, and tears over decades of my life without their efforts. And I say that out of appreciation. I mean, I think it's like, and I to the extent that you can look around us even today and we see people that have been just as meaningful and continue to be adding to the culture and the music. People like Doc Martin and things, people like that. We're all getting older. DJ Dan, that have been part of the creation of things, especially me coming from the West Coast. But East Coast, look at people like Frankie Bones and people like that, Adam X.
Frankie's still going strong.
Yeah. And pay respect. Give him, when you see him, give him a hug. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Do that now.
Yeah, do that now.
Do it now because, don't get me started on all the people that I've known as being a promoter that I've seen come and go and have now passed away. And I think about them a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
People that I see, I'll give a personal example. Her name was Yelva. A lot of people know her. My first experience with Yelva was this hurricane running through the crowd at a Doc Martin event in Underground. And I was like, who in the heck is this? Raw, just tons of energy. Boom. Got to know her. She's very, Yelva Mejia. She was very well known. because of her just big size personality in a small package, she ended up doing some things. She even worked the door for me in a couple events at the King. And I really appreciated her. She was well loved, and out of the blue passed away, RIP. Yeah. And I can't, that's a shocking thing to our system, because when you see people, whether you're at our age now or not, you think it's just going to last forever, but it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
And so let's use this opportunity to give a shout out to all those people that are alive and kicking. And, I had this conversation with Jacob, DJ Theo, Brave Legend, and I was like, dude, we're all getting to this age now where we just can't help. I mean, look, I would almost say, especially in today's world, we're kind of in the middle of the road, right? There's still much in front of us as there is behind us, but we still have a lot in the rearview mirror and looking around. And I think the people that constituted the appreciation that we've had in that rearview mirror take the time to give them a hug and say thank you. And I would say that to all the people that I've run into, that, we wouldn't be doing this podcast right here. I wouldn't be doing Flash Radio FM if it hadn't been the exposure and the stuff that those people brought to me culturally, and even the friends that I've made. And so it's just a deep thing to think about, maybe as we end this podcast, but I'm glad you brought it up, because it's an important part to think about. Girl.
Oh, and there is one last thing I wanted to say, because I just cannot believe we left it out, is Andy Yamhoo.
That's right.
I mean, his contribution to music is just so deep and varied, and obviously as Yamhoo, but also Midnight Riot Records, and he's been at it since the 90s under many different acronyms and many different pseudonyms and many different M's, and completely out of nowhere. It was like the same thing when the female vocalist for Crazy Penis died last year. It was just wow, just completely out of nowhere. And there are the people who have got to know why or what happened, and my attitude is, what does that matter?
Doesn't matter.
What does that matter now? They're not here, and I just want to rest in peace to all of these people, and their music lives on, so that's great.
Hey, I got an idea here on the podcast. When if we get a chance, some of these folks that we know and have been influenced by, let's spend a few minutes talking about their music and what they did, and some factoids. Let's just talk about it, because I think it's a good thing, and it's out of respect. Whether it's the DJ Funk, a lot of people are watching us probably like, who is that? I don't know who that is. No idea. Yeah. So that'd be a good topic for us in the future.
Maybe what we'll do with the next episode is we'll plan to record it behind the decks.
Yeah.
And we'll load up a bunch of music from everybody.
Yeah, good idea.
That has passed away in the last, let's say, year, maybe half year, but something like that. And talk about some of their originals, and how, somebody like Roy Ayers, and how I just got this amazing, tremendous rework from Random House Project.
Oh yeah,
of Roy Ayers. Everybody loves
Isn't
the Sunshine.
That so good?
It's so good.
It's good when I got it and I listened to it 3 times in a row. I was like, oh yeah, the beautiful arrangement. It gets it to a crescendo.
That guy has a magic touch, man. What he did with Phil Collins in the air tonight.
That's some other hot stuff. Yeah.
I wanted to play that in the set anyway, so now I've got a reason.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, Mini Driver's back. I think that's our clue to wrap things up for this week's podcast and episode number 2.
Yes.
Last time was our Hello World. This is our Hey World. We're here and we're sitting on the couch and we're getting comfy, getting good. I hope everybody liked this combo. We appreciate any feedback that you might be able to provide us. We want it to be a conversation. We love to obviously talk between each other, but we want to hear what you guys have to say, and we'll incorporate it in. I also want to, before we go, I want to say we've got a live 24/7 365 radio station for Flash Radio FM. You can go to live365.com. We'll put the links in there for you to check it out, but it's essentially all the tracks we play. Long, just dial it in. I listen to it just to hear the kind of stuff I'd like to, get refreshed on my tracks.
Right.
But it's good stuff, man. And I want to highly recommend it to that. Go to flashradio.fm. That's an actual URL, and you'll get all the links to things like swag and shirts. We're doing the whole thing. We're doing the damn thing. We're doing it all.
And by the way, the radio station, 3,000 tracks on there.
That's right.
And I guarantee you, probably 2,800 of them, you've never heard those remixes
That's
before.
absolutely right. And I've spent a lot of time doing some digging over the last, I'll call it maybe 8 years. And I have always looked for stuff that's like, oh, I have to save this for later. And there was never a time when it really kind of made sense until now as we started Flash Radio FM. So I'm digging things out, everything from Razor made classics to, the X cut mixes. It's just weird stuff, mix it from out of the Bay Area and Cameron Paul, all that stuff is super, super cool. Yeah. And so give it a listen and, we'd appreciate it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy. Thank you for dialing in. I am Rob Tronick, and this is
Pat SL, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Flashradio.fm